So I wanted to do a quick mini follow-up to my AI video. I want to admit this very brief because I do worry that some of the comments I've gotten have missed the point of that video. Now I edited that video quite a lot. I edited quite a lot out. I went on a bit of a thing about how I don't think AI is good enough to do what I can do or ever will be good enough to do what I do. And I kind of went into a whole thing about that. But the point of the video was to defend the concept. So me slagging it off was sort of in opposition to that. So I just want to fill in some of those blanks because I don't think it's a good thing. I won't use it. I did say that in the video. I won't use AI particularly. I have no interest in doing that. I don't think I would play in a game that does because I don't really. This is the point. I don't even want to play Baldur's Gate 3. That's how little interest I have in the video gamification of tabletop hobby. I couldn't be less interested in it. But my point was that for a certain kind of game and a certain kind of player, it will work quite well, and it's just a tool that can be used. Now, is it a tool that will be misused? For sure. But even in terms of like AI art, I think that is very bad. But as a creative person who's often working on projects with a very low budget, I can't afford to pay artists. And often that results in me just not using art or using like the cheapest possible version of art. And if I could use AI art, which I could do if I wanted to fill in that gap on the budget that I have, then that's a useful tool for me. But it's open to abuse. Automation tools that make life easier for the working class will be abused by the capital class to make the working class obsolete and make their lives ultimately worse. So the people that, Disney using AI to generate opening credits on, what was it, Secret Invasion or something? I didn't watch it, so I don't know. But apparently they used AI to generate the opening credits, and that's bad because it's Disney. They're one of the biggest companies in the world. They can afford to pay some artists. It's very morally reprehensible for them to not do that, them to cut out the artists from their work because they're fucking Disney. Whereas I am a little tiny creative who has, who's working entirely off his own back, keep just trying to keep a roof above my head, so I can't afford to pay artists. So I think that there are degrees of separation there, and it's quite stupid and ignorant to just give a blanket, oh, it's terrible, just because it will be abused, because everything will ultimately be abused. If you want to be like totally 100% anti-capitalist in a Brennan Lee Mulligan kind of way, then great, do that. But yeah, it's very silly to say that things that can't make our the workers' lives easier are bad simply because they will be abused by capitalists. And unless you're going to lead the revolution yourself, then that situation is not going to get any better. It's just going to compound itself until we reach something that I can't even comprehend. We're getting into politics now. So as a tool to make running the game easier and to make it easier for players to find a game that they can play in, I think it's a perfectly viable one. I think it's very silly to dismiss it outright as something that can make people's lives easier. Now, can people do a better job than AI currently? Yes, 100% for sure they can. But could AI run a competent enough module game? Yeah, I mean, I just finished playing a massive game of Mansions of Madness the other day. If you don't know that game, that's run by an app. Now, it's not AI, it's not adaptive in any form, but it's the start of that kind of game. It's a dungeon crawling, narrative kind of game. It's the start of something that could be much more adaptive, much smarter, much clever, and will only get better as time goes on. So it's kind of stupid to pretend that it won't be able to do the job and it won't be a useful tool for people who can't either find a DM to run a game for them, or that kind of modular format of D&D that I don't like running and I don't like playing. So I'm never going to run a game like that anyway. But for that style of game, it's a useful tool. I don't see why we should pretend it couldn't be. And I think there might be some players who run that kind of game who think they're being more creative than they actually are, who are offended by the idea that AI could do what they do, but AI probably could do what you do. Did you once run a game that was set in a magical school for gifted students? Yeah? Well, I'm sure you had a very original take on the subject. It's very ignorant to say that if somebody can't run the game the way that you do it, they shouldn't be allowed to do it at all. I don't say that in general. I say that I think the way I run games is better, and I think that it's more people would enjoy it if they tried it. But I wouldn't say that if you can't do my game you shouldn't play at all at all. If people want to play like big minis on a map kind of combat-y dungeon crawly games, then yeah, they totally should. I'm not telling anybody that they're a bad person for running that kind of game. So I'm never going to say if you can't run the game the way I do, you shouldn't be allowed to run games. And that's kind of what the people who are some of the anti-D&D, anti-AI sentiment is, which seems very silly to me. I'm not going to pretend that I understand how any of this AI works. I don't. I'm not a tech person particularly. But I'm kind of thinking of a system where you can program it with a series of command elements that it can then feed off of and build something semi-original from that. Just so you would program in a story or program in a character parameters or character types so that it can then like pick pieces out and create something. So I'm thinking of a way of it building off of a programmable base rather than building from nothing and simply stealing from every corner of the internet. So my point was that as a blanket, no, I think that's silly. It's just another tool that could be used in some way. I don't like it. I don't even like VTTs. So I'm a very extreme example of not liking it. Like I say, I don't even want to play Baldur's Gate 3. That's how high my aversion for the video gamification of the hobby is. I won't even play Baldur's Gate 3. So yeah, I could very easily be on the extreme end of this, rallying against AI, but I just don't see the point. It just doesn't. It doesn't bother me. I will do what I'm going to do, whether it exists or not. So yeah, I wouldn't deny somebody a tool that could make their lives easier just because it will be abused. I would rather be trying to target the people who are going to abuse that concept. So yeah, pick your battles, I think maybe is the point. Pick your battles. No to AI art, no to AI writing, no to AI, in the creative process. But if somebody's like programming a story in a way that an AI could run a game, for players who struggle to find a DM, or players who just want to run the game in a particular way, or DMs who would rather be playing, then yeah, I think that's the way it should go and the way it should be adapted. And we will never get there unless we allow it to be experimented with. We never get to the point where it actually becomes something useful. So yeah, there's definitely a line that added some context and didn't just make things worse. Do all of the YouTube things and look at my links. The end.